Hey there. So I wanted to take the opportunity to do a quick chat with you guys about weighing and measuring our food and why we do that and why that is so important to do. So when we are tracking macros or even portion sizes for that matter, it's important to know the amount that you're actually eating and have a good idea as to what an actual serving size is or the weight of it is so that we're not overeating. So we tend to put ourselves into a calorie deficit, or a coach calculates calories to make it so that you're in a calorie deficit. And by under eating, you're actually too far into a calorie deficit and your body will fight you on weight loss. And by um, maybe you're hitting your targets, but you're not losing weight, it's usually because you're tending to overeat or not tracking correctly. So tracking correctly is really, really, really important. So I strongly recommend that you invest in a food scale. Food scales are very inexpensive, like 10, 15 bucks, and super helpful to have around. So that would be the first thing I would strongly suggest. That way you can accurately weigh your food. There are a lot of tracking apps out there, and people tend to say put meat into them. And I'll give an example being chicken. It's one that I commonly see with a lot of clients is that they'll put in a medium chicken breast. Well, what is a medium chicken breast? Like, do you get out like three chicken breasts and you're like, this one's small, this one's medium, this one's large, and then you plunk it in and it says, oh, okay, it's like 250 calories. Well, if you don't actually know how much that chicken breast weighed, how are you getting 250 calories, and who determines what a medium chicken breast looks like? So, first of all, always weigh it so that you know what it is. When you are weighing it, I would highly, highly, highly recommend you weigh it once it's cooked, because prior to cooking it, it's going to have maybe more moisture content. And so, if you're weighing it after it's cooked, then you have a general idea as to kind of how much moisture is actually in it, and the weight is more true to what it actually is in the state that you are going to consume it. So that's the first thing. Second thing, when you are tracking portion sizes in, say, an app like you're tracking macros, make sure you're selecting the correct portion size. Don't just put that you're using one portion if you don't even know what an actual portion is, or you don't know what their serving size is. A lot of the time, things like pasta and stuff, they tend to give you a serving size prior to cooking. Well, pasta usually doubles in weight once it's cooked. So if you're weighing it out and it says a serving size is, say, 85 grams, well, 85 grams of cooked pasta is like this much pasta. It's not very much. And it might not be a true serving size. So do pay attention to whether the serving size that they're giving you is based on being cooked or prior to cooking. Things like pasta and rice and oats all tend to fall into that category. Then also selecting a good idea as to how much of something you're having. So if it's only in grams or only in milliliters, make sure that you're being a little bit more accurate as to what those grams or milliliters actually are, versus just guessing or inputting something. Now, there are times when we need to guesstimate, or we need to kind of just choose the best option, and that is super understandable. You're never going to 100% hit your macros. Like, that's just the way of the world. It just never actually happens that way. Even if it looks nice on paper, you might not have actually hit your macros, but we just make the adjustments that we need to at that time. Now, like I said, super important to make sure that you are accurately tracking this information and that you're tracking it to the best of your ability. I had somebody contact me the other day asking me, oh, well, how do I track this wild game um, jerky? And I was like, okay, well, wild game is technically like red meat. So therefore, we're going to track it like we would any other red meat, which would be like beef or something along those lines. Now, this wild game meat might be leaner. It might be a little bit more protein dense. Now, protein density isn't really an issue for us, but it being a little bit leaner is super helpful. You could track it like you would like a turkey pepperoni because it's going to be leaner. However, that being said, it's going to have maybe more protein content, so therefore a little bit more calories than turkey pepperoni. So personally, I would just track it like I would another red meat. There's going to be lots of those stipulations, and definitely contact me or your coach to get assistance with that and what that looks like for calorie tracking. Now, I do want to show you guys a visual representation as to kind of why it's so important to make sure that we are tracking this stuff accurately. So if you see here, if we're looking at our food, why do we weigh our food? Well, are you having a tablespoon of peanut butter, or are you having like a heaping tablespoon of peanut butter? And the difference is like over 100 calories. And so this is really, really important to note. Same thing with oil. Are you having a dash of oil, or are you pouring a bunch of oil into the pan? Again, you're looking at another 100-calorie deficit. And then a handful of almonds, like there's 2 different handfuls of almonds here. And again, it's like almost a difference of 100 calories. Now, if you are consistently going over on calories and you don't realize it, that difference of 300 calories in your day might be just what's holding you back from meeting your goals. So being very aware of what you're eating, how much you're eating, so that you can actually make those adjustments. If you're just doing portion sizes and you're not tracking macros, you can still make these adjustments, but you need to be aware of what your portion size is, right? If we're talking about a thumb of fat is a tablespoon of fat. And again, as we saw in that picture, a tablespoon of peanut butter or a heaping tablespoon of peanut butter is like 100 calories difference. So you got to kind of make those regulations to yourself as to, am I actually tracking this correctly to meet my goals? Am I staying on track? Now, to also come into this, so not only are we talking about portion sizes and tracking things accurately, we need to talk about how does it work when I decide that I want to drink during maybe a hot day or a social gathering. How does that work for my nutrition and nutrition partitioning? There we go. So one thing that I always tell people is that you want to hit your protein first. So whether you're doing macros or you're doing portion sizes, protein is king. So making sure that you're hitting that protein in that day, that is very, 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 very important. From there, the studies show it doesn't really matter whether the rest of your calories come from carbohydrates or fat. Now, that being said, obviously alcohol doesn't really fall under carbohydrates and fat unless you're consuming beer or wine or sugary beverages and those kinds of things, and then those will play into your carbohydrates. But alcohol itself is its own nutrient, and so it does have its own caloric value. So when we are tracking macros or calories or portion sizes and those things, I really say be aware of how much you're drinking and where your calories are at from alcohol, making sure that you're hitting protein and staying within those calorie guidelines that myself or your coach has given you is going to be most important. And then working the rest of the calories from carbohydrates and fats around that. I will be doing another video posting about kind of what it looks like for alcohol consumption with when you're in a deficit and how that works for your body. But just being aware that you want to make sure that you're still hitting that protein, because that protein is going to keep you fuller longer. It's going to be muscle sparing, and it's going to be helping, your body with repair and recovery and all of those other things that kind of go into that. So hopefully this little talk has really helped you establish kind of your goals and how to kind of better meet your goals with portion sizes and accurate tracking. Have a fabulous day.